You think about a yoke, you can start to realize how that is a good picture for how we carry the burdens of our life incorrectly. If you're taking notes with us, the next 3 points that I have for you are the 3 problems that we have with generally the way we approach our lives and how our responsibilities in those lives. The first problem with the yokes that many of us have is that they don't fit. They don't fit. If you have a yoke and the U-ring is the wrong size, either the animal is going to be choked or the animal is going to easily escape or hurt its neck as it pulls the plow. In the same way, many of us have lives that don't fit. It's like if you got a 40-inch waist, you might want to fit into those 34-inch pants, but you just can't, right? You maybe potentially can down the road, but right now you don't fit into them. Or ladies, if you're wearing I don't actually know how women's clothes work. I think from the pulpit I can say God's truth, women's clothing sizes don't make sense. But you can apply for yourselves. Like if you have something that doesn't fit, it won't work for you. And very often our lives don't fit us. Why? Because we're not willing to engage with our limitations. But your limitation is this is the size of your waist. You have to wear pants that fit. Oftentimes we don't look at our lives and see what our limitations are because frankly our society doesn't want us to. They would rather talk about all our potentialities. And there's something to that, of course. We're made in the image of God, and in a sense, we have God imbued into us. We have the ability that he has to take chaos and make order out of it, and that's lovely, but what very often we do is ignore the limitation side of this or the fact that we're also made out of dirt. We're the original biodegradable item. God made us out of dirt, and to dirt we will go again. We don't face our limitations. Or to say it differently, we're probably more likely to go to the bookstore and buy a book called Unlocking Your Unlimited Potential, rather than a book called Coming to Grips with Your Morality and Your Cosmic Insignificance. We're not willing to engage our limitations when we think about what fits in our lives. So let me give you just a number of things that might be limitations for you that you maybe never thought of before. First of all, your body. Your body is a limitation. Right, first of all, you're just able to only be in one place at one time, but there might be any number of other limitations on that body. Maybe you have a certain injury, right, that keeps you from being able to do certain things. Or maybe your body just needs a certain amount of sleep or a certain amount of food or a certain amount of exercise. Whatever it is, your body is a limitation. How about your mind? Your mind is only capable of what it's capable of. You can only remember so many things, process so many things. You might have mental illnesses. Number 3, your abilities. You might have certain gifts, but not others. Capable of certain things, but really struggle with others. 4, your personality or your emotional wiring. Are you introverted or extroverted? Do you need a good cry every now and again? Do you thrive on order or thrive on chaos? Do you work better with systems or with people? Your family is another limitation. First of all, your family of origin, like none of us is a clean slate. How our parents treated us, how our parents treated each other, how our siblings treated us, all can influence us even today. And your family right now, right? Is your husband depressed? Is your wife bipolar? Are your children struggling in school? All limitations. How about your socioeconomic status? Were you born into money or no money? Were you born with money skills or no money skills? Even now, do you have a job that pays a lot or a little? Do you have to work extra hours in order to make enough money, or can you work fewer hours? How is your vacation schedule? How were you taught to invest your money? And so on from there. All limitations. How about your education or your career? Were you able to get into a school? Did you go to school? Which school did you go to? Does your job take more of your physical energy or your mental energy? Are you allowed to get off whenever you want, or do you have to work overtime? All limitations. How about your season of life? Are you raising kids, taking care of dying parents? Are you going to school? Limitations. Or your lifetime. The fact that you're only going to live a certain amount of time and your body's only going to be the way that it is for a certain amount of time. Or finally, and maybe this one's a little bit harder to get, but it's important, like God's call on your life. I think of this place where Jesus is talking with Peter and John, and he's talking to Peter about how Peter is going to be persecuted and eventually die because of his ministry. And John asks Jesus, hey, what about me? Why does Peter get to do that and I don't get to do that? And Jesus basically says, none of your business, man. Let Peter do his thing, you do your thing. But how quickly we don't like that, right? We see our call in life, and maybe we think that's too small for me, or I'd like to do something else, right? I don't want to be mom right now, I want to work, or vice versa. I don't want to be in the workplace. I wish I was out, or I wish I was doing more work or less work, or whatever it is, God's call in your life. And there might be any number of other limitations that you could think of, but the point is we rarely engage these things. We like to think about how we can overcome our limitations, right? Your body is a limitation? I'll sleep when I'm dead, we might say, right? Or exercise, that can go. I need to get work done. Or maybe our family, right? It'll be okay. My kids don't need as much attention. They get socialized at school, or mom is around, or whatever. And you could go down the list. We're constantly trying to push ourselves beyond our limitations. We won't engage those things. We're wearing a yoke that doesn't fit. But that's not all of us. Some of us actually have a yoke that fits just fine. It's just hitched to the wrong things. Like, we're maybe not the person who's running around from thing to thing, 5 minutes late for everything, going 135 down the 401 to get to wherever we need to go. We might actually have a life that is relatively balanced as far as our ability not to hurry, and yet we're still overwhelmed, weary, burdened, anxious, etc. It's not because we have too many things in our schedule or we're not engaging our limitations. We're just hitching our yoke to things that don't give life. Again, to push the metaphor, if you hitch up a yoke to a plow, it does really good work. If you hitch up a yoke to nothing, it's frustrating. It doesn't get anything done. Last week, we opened the can of worms, which is technology, and we said technology isn't a bad thing, but so often it leads us away from good things, right? How many of us hitch our schedules, maybe not even busy schedules, to things like technology that don't give us life? Here's a couple examples. Phil Zimbardo, he's a researcher. He works primarily with trying to help boys become men. He sees a crisis of manliness in our culture. His research says that the average young man by age 21 has played 10,000 hours of video games. The average. Now, there's other research that says that if you put 10,000 hours of practice into literally anything, you can become a master at that thing. So think about that. The average young man in our culture by age 21 could be an elite athlete, an elite artist, an elite writer. He could memorize the entire New Testament. He could get his master's degree, or he could beat level 4 on Call of Duty. But the girls aren't exempt from this. Research says that the average person is spending over 700 hours of their year on social media. The thing is, women spend 25% more time on social media than men, and that's even increased for younger women. So it's getting close to about 1,000 hours a year that the average young woman is spending on social media, which means in 10 years, she could become a master at whatever she wanted to become a master of, or she could scroll a little bit and see a whole bunch of people who have become masters of whatever they've become masters of. And by the way, this isn't true of young people, this is true of older folks as well, because while social media and video games tend to not be things that are so tempting for older folks, TV tends to be one that is. The average person in North America watches over 2,500 hours of TV every year. That means in 4 years, if you would just unplug your TV, you could become a master at anything, or you could make sure you caught up on Grey's Anatomy or watched Friends for the 3rd time, whatever it is. These things don't give life. In fact, the psychological research tells us that. It says that by watching a show or by playing a video game or by scrolling through social media, you're going through all the same emotional stressors that you would go through if those events were real, but you don't actually experience them. So you watch a movie where a bomb goes off, the same part of your brain that reacts if a real bomb was going off is reacting, but you're not actually going through it. And at the end of the movie, what has changed in your life? At the end of the level, what has changed in your life? As you finish scrolling, what has changed in your life? Nothing. You've wasted the spirit that God's given you. And so we might not be rushing around to thing after thing after thing, but we're wasting our yoke on things that aren't giving life.